To those who wreaked havoc in our capital today, you did not win. Violence never wins.
The Senate and the House Representatives back inside the Capitol working tonight after a chaotic and violent and historic day on our nation's Capitol. In fact, a live look now inside the Capitol tonight as lawmakers resume debate on the Electoral College vote.
Outside, you can see police lined up securing the building. A short time ago, Senator James Lankford, a Republican from Oklahoma, vowed to work together with fellow members of Congress and acknowledged that Congress will certify President-elect Joe Biden's win tonight. That all comes after a 6-hour delay while pro-Trump protesters forced their way into the U.S. Capitol. Police using tear gas as crowds overpowered them. D.C. police say protesters used chemical sprays to gain access. The building was quickly put on lockdown. Protesters pouring in. U.S. Capitol Police engaging in armed standoffs, and lawmakers were told to hide under desks and in closets.
And let me show you something. New video we got in tonight actually shows the situation as those crowds got inside the building. You can see this one. One officer by himself tries to keep the mob out. Clearly, you can see he's outnumbered. He picks up his baton, makes a stand for a second, decides retreating might be the safest form of kind of preserving the day for himself. That officer turns around and runs. Clearly, a very scary situation there for that officer. And I was told from security personnel inside the building that the last thing they want to do is have a gun battle with protesters entering the Capitol.
And now take a look at this. Broken windows at the Capitol building. While some protesters pushed their way past police, some got in this way. Certainly a ton of damage.
And this video here shows the moment that a woman was rushed to an ambulance after being shot inside the Capitol. Tonight we have learned that woman has died. It's unclear what led up to the shots being fired or who fired the shot. Now we're working to get more information and we will bring the updates to you as we get them.
And this just in tonight, multiple sources telling ABC News there have been discussions among some members of the Trump cabinet and Trump allies about the 25th Amendment, invoking it, which would be a way for members of the cabinet to remove President Trump from office.
And if that were to happen, the vice president would assume responsibility of the office. It's unclear right now how extensive these conversations have been or if some sort of vote is being taken. Vice President Mike Pence would support a move. It depends on what is discussed in that meeting. We don't know what's happening. We hope to get some more information soon. We do know that D.C.'s Attorney General Karl Racine is calling on Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump.
So clearly tonight, a lot of developments coming in quickly, and ABC 7 is bringing you team coverage. Mayor Bowser is expected to speak at about 10:30. We'll bring that to you live as soon as it starts. But first, D.C., Arlington, and Alexandria are all under a curfew through at least 6 in the morning. D.C. police just announced that they made 30 arrests for curfew violations tonight. We begin tonight with ABC 7's Heather Graff. And Heather, do people seem to be abiding by that curfew? Looking behind you, it looks like no one's left.
Well, Michelle, I can tell you that we continue to see that large police presence on the streets surrounding the Capitol. Fortunately, over the last hour or so, we have seen very few people out and about. So a little good news there at the end of what was truly a wild and surreal scene here in the nation's capital.
This is how the night ended, with law enforcement filling the streets to enforce a citywide curfew. But hours earlier, the day began here, with supporters of President Donald Trump holding a rally in protest at the Ellipse just south of the White House, and the president himself addressing the crowd to once again repeat his unproven claims of widespread voter fraud in the November election.
We believe that the election was stolen. Major fraud.
The president's supporters echoed his false statements as they then marched to the U.S. Capitol. Members of Congress were beginning a joint session to certify President-elect Joe Biden's victory. And that is when the chaos began. Protesters clashing with police before some were able to breach the building.
That was our election. We the people. It's our house. We pay for it. We pay their salaries, and they need to hear us.
Protester Sherry James told us she was part of the group that got in.
We all went inside, and then the SWAT team or police, whatever they were, they came in and started spraying mace, and I was coughing, we were coughing. We don't care what anyone thinks anymore. We want to take our country back.
But as word spread about what had happened, and more law enforcement rushed in to help,
it brought tears to my eyes. It's upsetting.
we met protester Daniel Rice, frustrated by the violence and trying to calm down this angry crowd as the Capitol went into lockdown with members of Congress inside.
I don't see a point in destroying the interior of a building that's been here for 250 years since the founding. I mean, to me, it's just stupid.
A plea for his fellow protesters to end the mayhem.
I think it's just not the right thing to do.
But his concerns, shared by so many across the country, were drowned out on this day by all the noise.
And what you heard there at the end were police officers with the National Guard and the D.C. Police Department ordering the remaining protesters to move back. That happened at about 7:30 this evening. We heard law enforcement give multiple warnings to people who were remaining in the area, who were not abiding by the curfew. And we've heard from many agencies today that that curfew is something they will enforce throughout the evening. We're live tonight in the district. Heather Graff, ABC 7 News.
Heather, thank you. And now we want to get to ABC 7's Carl Willis.
And Carl's been parked right outside the Capitol most of the night for us. And Carl, what's happening out there? Earlier, it was a lot of excitement going on. Now it's awfully quiet out there.
Absolutely, Jonathan. We saw the introduction of dozens and dozens of Metropolitan Police officers, first of all, pushing demonstrators back after a day full of chaos. A lot has been made of the windows that were smashed out, bullet holes that we found in one of the windows, and the woman who was shot and killed. Well, even hours after that, there were still people camped out in the front of this is the east side of the Capitol building. They were up on the stairs, and then at about 4 or 5 o'clock, you saw police starting to form a line and pushing people away from the building, securing the building. As you can see now, it is completely wide open. It is barricaded off right now. Nothing but police vehicles beyond this barricade right here. Now, we went to the north side where Heather was, and this is the scene that we saw out there shortly after this was all secured. And not too long after that, the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew kicked in. Saw a man getting arrested. We saw, again, police forming a line and pushing back people. Pushing back, they would kettle them in, they would make arrests. We saw at least 3 people being detained, and then they would push them back. And shortly, as the night went on, until the scene that you saw behind Heather just now, it is basically, there are maybe a handful of protesters now. A few people who are not obeying the curfew, but they are not being detained at this point. Police leaving them be. Here's what one gentleman we spoke with earlier had to say about the chaos that's been going on around the Capitol grounds.
The Epiphany represents, psychologically speaking, when there's an awakening. And I think today was an awakening that there are millions of people that know that the election was stolen, and they came here to express their anger.
Well, they certainly did express their anger, and again, no evidence that was brought in front of a court of law about an election being stolen. Still, people who have been protesting throughout the day, very adamant about that, saying stop the steal throughout the day, even resorting to violence inside the Capitol. So at this hour, the curfew, we're 4 hours into the curfew. Most people have been following it. It is pretty quiet out here right now, and the Capitol is secure. It appears from the outside as our lawmakers are inside doing their work. The east side of the Capitol, Carl Willis, ABC 7 News.
All right, Carl, thank you for that. And Facebook and Twitter took to extraordinary step tonight of locking President Trump's accounts, meaning he can't use social media. After his supporters stormed the Capitol building to protest the election, that's when they made the decision to do that. This is one of the tweets that was pulled down. It reads, quote, "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long." Twitter locked the president's account for 12 hours and warned that it may suspend him permanently if he violates policies again. So again, the president has no access to social media tonight. And tonight, we could be headed for another impeachment because just more than an hour ago, Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar said that she is drawing up the articles for impeachment because, quote, this is her words, "We can't allow him to remain in office. It's a matter of preserving our republic, and we need to fulfill our oath." If convicted in a Senate trial, the president would be removed and banned from holding public office.
And late this afternoon, we heard from President-elect Joe Biden. He did not mince words. He called this an insurrection and an assault on democracy.
This is not dissent. It's disorder. It's chaos. It borders on sedition. And it must end now. I call on this mob to pull back and allow the work of democracy to go forward. You've heard me say before in different contexts, the words of a president matter, no matter how good or bad that president is. At their best, the words of a president can inspire. At their worst, they can incite.
So right now, lawmakers are getting back to business, and we want to focus on the task at hand for Congress, certifying the election for Joe Biden.
Our national correspondent, Christine Frizzau, explains the important first step in moving past this dark day.
Good evening. A stunning turn of events here inside the U.S. Capitol. After sheltering in place and trying to hide from an angry mob, lawmakers this evening have returned to work. And some of those Republican senators who were outspoken about objecting to the results of the Electoral College have now changed their minds. After having their offices and their sense of security breached, this was the scene for lawmakers this evening. Senators back to work to continue to certify the Electoral College votes.
Now we're going to finish exactly what we started. We'll complete the process the right way, by the book, and we will certify the winner of the 2020 presidential election.
Many in Congress calling the riot a shameful assault on our democracy. Some Republican senators who had planned to object changing their vote.
And I cannot now in good conscience object to the certification of these electors.
And we're headed towards tonight, towards the certification of Joe Biden to be the president of the United States.
President Trump in a tweet called his supporters, quote, great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Twitter later threatened to permanently suspend his account. Also tonight, a wave of resignations inside the Trump administration. That includes Stephanie Grisham, the chief of staff for First Lady Melania Trump. On Capitol Hill, I'm Christine Frizzau.
And we will, of course, continue to follow every development from Capitol Hill. We're watching these live pictures as lawmakers continue to discuss, and we will check in with more from our reporters in the district, tracking the conditions as the curfew continues to be in place. You can always stay up to date by going to WJLA.com and the free ABC7 News app.
Good evening, everybody. When it comes to weather, it's going to be a chilly start out the door tomorrow morning with widespread temperatures at or below freezing. Coming up in just a bit, we'll let you know what you can expect. Track our next weather maker as well as we get closer to the weekend. See you back in just a little bit.
Today's violence by pro-Trump groups at the U.S. Capitol.
ABC7's Annalisa Gale is live near the Hilton near Black Lives Matter Plaza, where many of the president's supporters have been seen tonight. Annalisa?
That's right, Michelle, Jonathan. Right now, we are just about 4 hours after curfew, and we have seen several cars, police cruisers surrounding this hotel in particular, because this is where the supporters have booked some hotels here. Again, at least 30 have been arrested for curfew violations in the district. We have not witnessed any arrests here in front of the Hilton so far tonight. Officers have been reminding President Trump supporters that they are not allowed to leave this hotel. Barriers are in place here in front of this hotel, and throughout the night we've heard some supporters yelling profanities at officers because they feel their rights are being violated. We've heard many saying they don't agree with the curfew and the large police presence that we saw today. Moments ago, though, Vice President Mike Pence tweeted, quote, "To those who wreaked havoc in our capital today, you did not win." He also said, quote, "We condemn the violence that took place here in the strongest possible terms." And he said, "We grieve the loss of life in the hallowed halls." And now we want to take a look over at Black Lives Matter Plaza, which is usually a meeting place for protesters here in the district, but it is closed off and it is empty as police have been enforcing this curfew and making sure that everyone stays off the streets of D.C. after what we saw today. That is the very latest. I'll send it back to you.
So thank you. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam talked to ABC 7's Tim Barber tonight, and he addressed the violent protests at the Capitol and had a message for President Trump.
This is really a disgrace for this country. It's unpatriotic, certainly as a veteran. And there are a lot of other veterans in this country, as well as men and women that are currently wearing the uniform. This is a tremendous slap in the face for what we have fought for every day. And you know, Republicans, Democrats, all of us, all Americans should find what happened despicable and do everything that we can to never let this happen again. We were notified that the mayor of Washington called for a curfew at 6 o'clock. We understand that a lot of these individuals that were protesting today are staying in Alexandria and in Arlington, and we don't want any more trouble tonight, or for that matter, any night or day. And so we talked to the leadership of Alexandria and Arlington, and they have a curfew as well. So we're going to do everything that we can to keep the peace. We certainly support a peaceful transition for our president-elect, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I think Americans deserve that. And I would call on our president tonight to concede this election, to stop telling lies to individuals that hear it over and over again to the point where they believe it. He has literally created a tinderbox, and today he, as well as other Republicans, threw a match on that tinderbox, and the rest is history, unfortunately.
We have breaking news just in now. The Senate just voted to reject the challenge to Biden's election win in Arizona, which means the result in states will stand. Several other senators have said that they will no longer object the results after today's violence. We're going to continue to monitor these live pictures as lawmakers continue the electoral count vote process. But for now, let's check in with our chief meteorologist, Bill Kelly, on what we can expect when we wake up. Hopefully a nicer day tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, those clouds never broke today. It was pretty much an overcast day for the most part, and a chilly one as well. And that's where we are right now. Good evening, everybody. 40 degrees in D.C. The number, for the most part, has not moved much. 36 in Chantilly. We're above freezing for Gaithersburg, although Stafford right at that freezing mark right now, 38 in Martinsburg. Looking around the region, we still have clouds, but we are finally starting to see these breaks around our area from the south. And they're getting a little bit more around the region. It's just this cold air, this cold, moist air from all the rain locked in place, and we're hoping that these clouds break. All the signs show that they will break. We'll have to see what Mother Nature, maybe she's going to throw that curveball again tomorrow, but we're saying right now, generally speaking, sunny conditions for at least the first part of the day. We're still tracking our next weather next weather maker that's close off to our south for Friday, so we get some sunshine for the first half of the day. Second half of the day, we're going to start watching some of these clouds move in from the south. We should be sunny through a majority of the daylight hours, but by this time tomorrow night, clouds really start filling in, and by the time we get to Friday, they're back. Models continue to keep this system south of our area. So Friday morning, you wake up, it's most likely going to be cloudy. We'll keep it cloudy during the day, but watch how we get into central Virginia, central and southern Virginia, and that's about the northern extent of where this weather maker should make it. So if you're watching from our far southern areas, we're talking about down around the northern neck, all the way to Westmoreland County or Spotsylvania County, potentially seeing some of this work up later in the day Friday, but it'll be gone by Friday evening. This is not going to be a big impact maker for us. It scoots on out of here, and by Saturday, it's offshore. Skies will start to clear as we get on into the afternoon Saturday. So the next few days, chilly start tomorrow morning. Temperatures for the most part at freezing. D.C. probably 34 or so. Up into the mid-40s for your day tomorrow. And then Friday, about the same, a little cooler because of the clouds like today. Starting out into the 30s, ending up into the 40s. The weekend looking pretty good for this time of year. Don't expect 60s or anything like that. Normal highs 43. We're going to go give or take a few degrees both Saturday, Sunday. And then we're still tracking another weather maker that has a better chance of impacting us, and that looks to be Tuesday. Still quite a bit of difference going on, so confidence at this point 6 days out, still granted 6 days out. Confidence still fairly low, but we're going to be tracking that for Tuesday. So cloudy on Friday, tracking rain/snow on Tuesday. Otherwise, it's going to be dry, just chilly, where we should be this time of year. 20s for lows, 40s for highs. We'll be right back.
Over of the Capitol continues to grow.
But we are also hearing from people who were in the middle of it. ABC 7's Justin Hinton spoke with lawmakers who represent you here in the D.C. area while they were locked down today.
These things do not happen in the United States. They shouldn't happen in the United States.
And yet they did. That was Virginia Congressman Rob Whitman, a Republican who prior to today supported a challenge to the electoral count. Where rioters breached security and stormed into the Capitol, upset over the election results. That forced members of Congress to shelter in place, all of it making Maryland Representative Anthony Brown angry at President Trump, who he says incited them.
He spoke to this group and in the way that only Donald Trump and a mob boss can do in saying things without really saying things, sent a very clear, strict signal to them to move on the Capitol.
And while Representative Whitman stopped short of placing blame on the president, he condemned the actions of those who entered the Capitol.
Our government is based upon the principles of our Constitution, and that Constitution protects people's individual liberties to speak freely, to express their concerns, but it doesn't give them the right to move past peaceful protests.
They both say they're okay, as are their staffs. Brown looking to move forward, saying what happened cannot be the defining moment of today.
I think last night's election results in Georgia is the defining moment of today, where an African-American man, an American Jew, who's age 33, can get elected in the Deep South.
Still to come for us, we're going to continue our team coverage of today's violence at the Capitol and tonight's curfew that's in place in D.C. and in Virginia. Mayor Bowser is also set to speak at 10:30. We'll bring you that news conference live. Stay with us.
LA 24/7 News at 10, on your side.
And back now at 10:30, D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser is set to update the city's response on today's violence, and that's going to happen at any moment.
Right now, this is a live look at the podium where she will be speaking. Right now, a curfew is in place in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, and the National Guard from several states are in D.C. to protect the Capitol. We will bring you Mayor Bowser's comments when they happen.
And that as the House and Senate resume the debate to certify that Joe Biden will be president 14 days from now. The inauguration will take place in 2 weeks.
This all comes after pro-Trump protesters forced their way into the U.S. Capitol earlier today.
Police were using tear gas as crowds overpowered them. There were thousands. D.C. police say that protesters used chemical sprays to gain access. The building was quickly put on lockdown. Protesters pouring in from a number of different entrances. U.S. Capitol Police engaging in armed standoffs. And lawmakers were told to hide under their desks or shelter in place inside the Capitol.
And take a look at this. Broken windows at the Capitol building. While some protesters pushed their way past police, some got in this way. Certainly a ton of damage there to clean up.
And this video shows the moment that a woman was rushed into an ambulance after being shot inside the Capitol. Tonight we have learned that woman has died. It is unclear what led up to the shots being fired or who fired the shots. We're working to get some more information, and we will bring you the updates as soon as we get them. Our Tom Rousey has been out along the National Mall ever since this got started this afternoon.
Tom has been out there tracking this for us. An astounding day, really surreal what we've seen in the last 8 hours. Tom, tell us what you've experienced.
Well, we were out here this afternoon when thousands of supporters of President Trump made their way down the National Mall to the Capitol. And after what happened here at the U.S. Capitol, we talked to a number of them. Some were horrified by what happened here, others unapologetic.
Do not deface the statues
Myself and maybe 15 or 20 others were able to get into the Senate chambers.
Rick from New Hampshire, who wouldn't give us his last name, says he was one of the huge crowd of people who got past police and made it inside the U.S. Capitol.
And we're awaiting President Trump's orders.
When we asked him about committing an illegal act.
Well, in terms of legality, I think the real crime here is stealing an election. That's highly illegal.
I saw police officers pushing against the protesters, and the protesters were, hitting them with sticks, and the police were hitting them with sticks as well.
Some supporters of President Trump condemned what happened today.
But definitely there was some unfortunate violence happening closer up that I definitely don't condone.
The guys in yellow up on top all put on gas masks, at which point it's time to leave. We don't need that.
Bob Hatfield said he was glad he left before this happened. What appeared to be tear gas was fired at times throughout the afternoon.
All it took was a few hundred to push down the first barricade.
Ben Coward of Florida says he got shot in the face with pepper spray. His oldest son was with him, and he says he does not regret being a part of this.
We were pulling the barricade back and forth down. They got me so good, I couldn't see. I wouldn't trade this for the world. If there isn't a greater experience for my children to see what real patriotism is.
However, a number of not just Democrats, but Republicans tonight, a large number, saying that what happened here today was the opposite of what real patriotism is. There's widespread condemnation from politicians on both sides of the aisle tonight. Reporting live outside the U.S. Capitol, I'm Tom Rousey, ABC 7 News.
All right, now to Kevin Lewis, who had an up-close look at what was happening right outside the Capitol.
Yeah, Kevin, things have certainly calmed down a lot tonight.
Yeah, no doubt. And what's unique about today is in the two previous pro-Trump election protests, we saw peace during the day and violence break out at night. This time around, it was violence during broad daylight, and here in downtown D.C., peace during night. Right down the block here at F and 14th is the JW Marriott Hotel. We have video to show you from around 9 o'clock this evening. We stumbled across this scene. The fire alarm inside of the JW started going off. Trump supporters then came out here along 14th Street. D.C. police standing guard in the street. Some of the Trump protesters were telling the D.C. police to go away. They were upset that they were standing there. Other Trump protesters telling the police that their tax dollars pay their bills. A second piece of video to show you the two smashed out windows that we came across on the east side of the U.S. Capitol today. One of the smashed out windows went to a kitchen area, another to an office within the Capitol building. And we found a note card on a coffee maker in the kitchen area that said, in part, that Thomas Jefferson would be proud of what happened today. A third video clip to point out to you was a Trump supporter wearing a Make America Great Again hat berating a U.S. Capitol police officer who was on light duty, meaning she was home. She saw all of the breaking news and the commotion at the Capitol and self-dispatched down to the Capitol, so that's why she's not in a uniform. And the man in that red MAGA hat berating the woman using language we would never even use on television. The police officer later telling me it's all part of the job. People are angry, and she was just there trying to diffuse the Trump supporters and the media they were attacking. We're live in Northwest. I'm Kevin Lewis. Back to you guys.
Good job out there today, Kevin. Thank you. And while President-elect Biden said today's chaos at the Capitol does not represent who we are, President Trump spoke earlier in the day about the pain and hurt of his supporters.
Once again, renewing his false claim to have won the November election. Sinclair national correspondent James Rosen has a closer look.
Madam Speaker and members of Congress.
Not long after Vice President Pence gavelled the joint session of Congress to order, opening the door to a challenge of the certification of the Electoral College vote by a minority of Republican lawmakers, chaos descended on the Capitol complex.
You've never seen this before. Now you're seeing that this is a policy. You see it. Not deface the statutes.
But the protesters did inflict some damage, roaming the hallowed halls seemingly at will, with even the office suite of Speaker Pelosi compromised.
They broke the glass. Everybody stay down. Get down.
As terrified spectators watched from the House gallery, Capitol Police drew their firearms close to the House floor. On the Senate side, protesters ran wild on the floor. One young man brazenly occupied the same chair Vice President Pence had an hour earlier when he presided over the Republicans' truncated challenge to the certification of the Electoral College vote.
And it will stand in recess until...
Lawmakers in both chambers were evacuated.
Get down under your chairs if necessary, so we have folks entering the rotunda.
In Wilmington, President-elect Biden called the violence at the Capitol a god-awful display, an assault on the rule of law, chaos unlike anything we've seen in modern times.
It borders on sedition. I call on President Trump to go on national television now to fulfill his oath and defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege.
Minutes later at the White House, President Trump released a video that repeated his baseless claim the election was stolen from him before imploring his supporters to stay peaceful and, quote, go home.
We love you. You're very special, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace.
By late Wednesday, a form of peace once again prevailed on the Capitol, but the place would never be the same, and many now await investigations into how this shocking breach could have occurred in the first place. On Capitol Hill, James Rosen, ABC 7 News.
Some breaking news we're just getting now. We've just learned that Mayor Bowser has issued a mayor's order extending today's public emergency for 15 days. That's 1 day after the inauguration. And this is a live look at a podium. That's where Mayor Bowser is set to speak at any minute. As soon as she steps up there to talk, we'll be sure and bring that to you live.
Stunning images now from the nation's capital during today's siege. National correspondent Achel Nashar has a closer look at some of the violent images coming out of this dark day for our democracy.
We're supposed to protect our country, support our country.
Now ominous words from the president delivered in front of a crowd of protesters Wednesday afternoon. Around 2 p.m. local time, many of them starting to make their way to the U.S. Capitol, where lawmakers began the process to certify the Electoral College vote. Oklahoma Republican Senator James Lankford seen here being told the news.
Protesters are in the building.
The House floor breached not once, but twice.
I called my wife, let her know I was okay right now.
Democratic Congressman Dan Kildee of Michigan was in the room and describes the frightening moments to Sinclair.
And our Capitol Police drew their weapons. I heard a series of pops. I don't know if that was them hitting the glass because they were attempting to break the glass, or if it was tear gas, or if there was actual gunfire.
Rioters breaking into offices.
It was a sad, sad day for our republic, and they were criminal acts.
Republican Congressman Steve Stivers of Ohio.
The last time the U.S. Capitol was breached was in 1814 by British soldiers, and we were at war.
This video showing the moments after a woman was shot.
We gotta get EMS here!
Outside, police overwhelmed by rioters, using tear gas, calling in reinforcement from nearby Maryland and Virginia.
We're getting more information about the woman who was shot inside the Capitol during the breach. Local law enforcement tells us she was taken to a local hospital where she later died. On Capitol Hill, I'm Achel Nashar.
It's a clean sweep in Georgia. Democrats now win both U.S. Senate runoff races here. What does it mean? What are the impacts? I'm Scott Thuman in Savannah with a report.
Another major victory tonight that may have been overlooked by some of all the chaos that we've been following throughout the day at the Capitol. Jon Ossoff has been declared the winner of the second Senate runoff race in Georgia by less than 1%.
So that's a sweep for Democrats, which dramatically changes the landscape on Capitol Hill. Sinclair chief political correspondent Scott Thuman is in Georgia tonight to explain.
Well, word tonight that Jon Ossoff has indeed defeated incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue is resonating well beyond Georgia's borders, because what it means in conjunction with Raphael Warnock unseating Senator Kelly Loeffler overnight is that Democrats now have taken both races. They'll have 50 seats in the chamber, and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris would then serve to break any tie. That opens up an entirely new path for a Biden administration on how it wants to govern now that it has, albeit a slim majority in both the House and Senate. This also is seen as a major rejection of President Trump in a state that had been safe haven for Republicans for the past 20 years or so. And it's significant that two political outsiders, men who had never held public office, can upset two incumbent senators. And by the way, it also means that President Trump will be the first one since the Great Depression to lose both his re-election bid to the White House and also lose the House and Senate. In Savannah, Georgia, I'm Scott Thuman.
And we have more breaking news tonight. This just in, we are learning that police have arrested 47 people tonight for curfew violation arrests in D.C. The district has a curfew until 6 in the morning. Alexandria and Virginia also have an overnight curfew in place until 6. We are waiting right now for Mayor Bowser to step to the podium. She just extended her emergency order for another 15 days. That is 1 day after the inauguration. We again are expecting to learn more about that as well as soon as she speaks.
Well, as chaos was unfolding in D.C. today, the president's supporters also rallying across the country. From Los Angeles to Denver to Topeka to Lansing, Michigan. Some capitals had to shut down as protesters took over the area. Now, we didn't hear any reports of violence at any of these locations. And while there was plenty of unrest in the district today, scores of protesters staged a peaceful demonstration against President Trump in New York City tonight. Protesters held banners and posters in Columbus Circle calling on the president to accept the results of November's presidential election.
Incredible images coming out of this siege on the Capitol today. Here's a look at what happened.
Trump supporters breached the Capitol building during an Electoral College vote certification for President-elect Joe Biden, pushing past barriers and officers in riot gear, demonstrators outnumbering and overpowering law enforcement. Meanwhile, drama unfolding inside the building. Staffers and lawmakers take cover. The joint session of Congress halted as this emergency situation unfolds. Capitol Police in the House chambers tell lawmakers to hide under chairs and desks as Trump supporters enter the rotunda. An armed standoff at the House front door, guns drawn, reports of shots fired. As chaos takes over the Capitol, Vice President Mike Pence is evacuated from the building. One protester hanging from the balcony in the Senate chamber. Another flies a Trump is my president flag nearby. Lawmakers taking to Twitter to let their constituents know they are safe, asking for prayer for our country and for our fellow Americans to do the right thing.
Well, good evening, everybody. A quick switch gears here, show you what's going on. For the record today, a chilly day. We are only in the 40s, where we should be this time of year, but the clouds stuck around all day. I expect more sunshine tomorrow. We're in just this colder pattern that's, of course, not too outside the normal for this time of year. 31 in Pittsburgh today. There's our 40 in D.C., one of our warmer spots here. And you can see that we're dry around the region. We have a couple of breaks in the clouds. Getting some of those breaks tomorrow, but we're going to be tracking this weather maker right here that should stay off to our south. We've been monitoring it all week long. It's bringing rain right now through the deep south. We're seeing some snow showers up in the northern parts here of Arkansas and then farther to the north. You're seeing those as well. So let me walk you through your hour-by-hour forecast. We're going to keep it on this, what we call the mid-Atlantic view, the big view here. Overnight, skies will continue to break. I do expect some sunshine, dry conditions out there during our day tomorrow. It's going to be another chilly one. Temperatures in the mid to low 40s for highs, but tomorrow morning we should see those numbers back down into the 30s. Look it down to the south. That weather system continues to slide into our southern states by late tomorrow night, 24 hours from now. We start to see the clouds on the increase. And here on Friday, central and southern Virginia, that looks to be about as far north as this system should get. We'll call it cloudy here again on Friday. That will keep our temperatures down, but we are not expecting anymore the potential for rain and or snow in our area. That should just slide off to the east by Saturday. Let's advance, though. We've been telling you about next week having that bigger chance, the greater chance for some active weather around here. Here's 11 p.m. on Monday. Take you through our day Tuesday. And one thing I want to point out, this model is pretty consistent in bringing this weather system up here on Tuesday. The difference today is that it's much warmer, so it's a rain event with snow to the north. Getting word that Mayor Bowser is speaking. We're going to go to that right now.
Mayor Bowser just came out to the microphone. She's just waiting to make sure she has everybody with her. Her interim police chief.
And now, we bring you the following live press announcement from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Our regularly scheduled program will resume following the announcement.
Good evening. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. I'm here today at the D.C. Police Department's headquarters. I'm joined by members of my public safety team. We are here to provide a public safety update. I want to start by speaking directly to the residents of Washington, D.C., 712,000 tax-paying Americans. To us in Washington, we saw directly an affront not only on our American democracy, but on our own D.C. values. The values that make our city a welcoming, diverse, and inclusive place. We step up daily to support the federal government and the many federal events and activities that take place in our city to ensure safety in the nation's capital. Despite having zero representation, having no votes in the same Congress where this siege took place today. To the Metropolitan Police Department, or D.C. Police, Chief Conte, the entire command staff, and our officers who performed admirably, you made us proud. You are the patriots, not the people we saw storm the building. MPD immediately answered the call to support our federal partners today without hesitation and helped to quickly restore order to the Capitol. At this hour, we can report that the Capitol is secure, and MPD has worked in collaboration with the United States Capitol Police and the Secretary of the Army to further secure the grounds for the upcoming days. Today, this afternoon, I called for a curfew in the city that began at 6 p.m. and will run through 6 a.m. I urge anyone who is not in place in your home or your hotel, if you mean to cause trouble on the streets of Washington, D.C., you will be arrested. MPD will enforce tonight's curfew. To our fellow Americans, I know that I speak for all of us when I say that we saw an unprecedented attack on our American democracy incited by the United States president, and he must be held accountable. His constant and divisive rhetoric led to the abhorrent actions we saw today. And sadly, it led to a loss of life that will forever stain what could have been and what should have been a peaceful transfer of power. Again, he must be held accountable. I want to thank our lawmakers who returned to the Capitol building to do the work of the people in the people's house. I want to thank our regional partners, including the governors of Maryland and Virginia, the county executives and police chiefs of surrounding jurisdictions who responded to MPD's call for mutual support in the city, and also the call of the United States Capitol Police for support at the Capitol. Today, I signed an extension of the public emergency that I could declare today for 15 days so that we can continue to ensure peace and security through the inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Today may be a dark day for our democracy, but there is hope and change coming. With that, I want to turn to the Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Robert Conte, to provide an update.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. I am Chief of Police Robert Conte of the Metropolitan Police Department. My remarks are an update to the press briefing from earlier this afternoon regarding today's shocking and shameful behavior at the Capitol. but I want to first reassure community members across the District of Columbia that we are still responding to calls for police service, and we are grateful for your words of thanks and support for our members and partners. Around 8 p.m., Congress reconvened and the Senate has resumed their session, allowing democracy to continue. To get this accomplished, the Metropolitan Police Department, along with the U.S. Capitol Police, had to regain control of the U.S. Capitol by removing trespassers and sweeping the building for security. After we successfully removed all trespassers and cleared the building, our members established a secure perimeter around the Capitol building, utilizing police personnel in order to push back any demonstrators in the area. I would like to thank the assisting law enforcement agencies, to include Virginia State Police, Arlington County, Prince William County, and Fairfax County Police Departments, Maryland State Police, Montgomery County Police, Prince George's County Police, New Jersey State Police, and National Guard assets for answering the call. Shortly past 7:15 p.m., police personnel from local jurisdictions.
You've been listening to a public safety update from the mayor and the interim police chief. If you would like to continue listening to this, you can go to our website, WJLA.com, to continue to listen to that. Meanwhile, the news at 11 just minutes away, so switch over to Channel 7 for the news at 11.